So here's a summary of some of the exam strategies we were talking about. 99% or more than 95% of the questions on the exam are situational questions. Something's gone wrong in the project. Somebody's not happy with your project. You're either behind schedule, over budget, not meeting scope, not meeting quality. Meetings are being run poorly. Communications are not working well. And then they ask, what should you do first? What should you do next? What did the previous project manager forget to do? What plan or document should you go look at that's giving you instructions for how to handle this problem? What document should you update and issue here? So 99% of the questions are situational, and it's all about translating from the question back into the process matrix and PMI's structure, PMI's foundation. That's the correct way. Don't factor in your real world. Questions often include extraneous, irrelevant information, like we saw in that network diagramming problem. We saw all this logic being defined between these activities, but it was totally irrelevant. We just needed to skip to the last sentence, which said, where in what process do we get the schedule approved, and all that other dependency information and logic information was irrelevant. So oftentimes read the last sentence or last couple of sentences first to get a real handle on what the question is really about. Know what the question is really asking about. So math problems, they've actually reduced the amount of math. So there used to be 25, 30 math problems several years ago, and we're expecting that even now with the change to version 6, there's still going to be less math. This is conjecture. We don't know for sure yet, but we're expecting that it'll stay the same as what it's been for about the last year, 9 months, and that would be about 10 to 14 math problems, maybe 6, 7, 8 of those involving earned value and some algebra with those math problems. So be very careful on this. Don't pick an answer in the multiple choice for answers that states something that's completely valid, completely true, if it doesn't answer the question. So you've got to know what the question is asking for and then pick the answer that answers that. Sometimes questions can be worded pretty oddly. They might even be ungrammatical. There might be mistakes in the question, kind of poorly worded questions. Why are they doing that? Why would they do that at all? Well, do you have to deal with that in your real world? Don't you get emails from stakeholders, even senior managers, that are sometimes written with grammatical mistakes and other problems? Yes. So this is fair game, trying to weed through that stuff and find the better answers. So just be prepared and know that you might have to deal with that. Again, another summary slide. We've made these points before, but forget about your real world. This test is not about the real world. And don't try to translate this into your real world. Never ask yourself in dealing with these questions, how would I solve this problem in my company, in my culture? That's irrelevant at this time. Just put on your PMI hat and apply the PMI structure and foundation here. Remember that the PMBOK guide supports all projects in all industries, no matter how complex. So that's what we're preparing for. That's what we're thinking of for this test. We're imagining ourselves as being a project manager, perhaps of a very large construction project, maybe something that's over $20 million, $50 million, and perhaps we have a team of 20, 30 people reporting to us, and we're very large and in charge. We've been given a lot of authority. That is probably the default. So assume going into most test questions, if they don't say anything else, assume you're that type of empowered project manager. Steer away from answers in the 4 multiple choice answers. Steer away from answers that state something very categorically. If the answer says something is always the case, never the case, Be leery about picking that answer. This doesn't mean that it can never be the right answer, but there probably are some exceptions, probably are some counterexamples. So maybe kind of steer away from those types of answers. Read things slowly. Be pretty methodical as you're reading through these questions. I can read pretty fast, and that was not a good thing, even back in the day when I took this. It's easy to miss a not, an except, a but, and always, a key quantifier that changes the meaning of everything. So work through the questions slowly enough, methodically enough, that in most cases you can just read them once. You don't have to read and reread and reread and overanalyze. And be careful in how you're reading the questions. Never shortcut any of these 49 processes. Never pick an answer that maybe the scenario, the situational question is laying it out that the project is woefully behind schedule and upper management, the customer, are pressing you very, very hard to streamline things, cut some things out. And they say, do you really need to spend the time on risk analysis and identifying risks? Can't we just cut that out? Isn't that optional here? We're really pressed for time. We need to find some ways to save time. So no, that would not be the right answer to agree to that and to accept to eliminate doing risk. So assume everything is essential. There's another answer in the 4 answers where we're explaining to the senior manager or this customer why doing risk is absolutely essential. Sometimes you're given a simple question, a simple problem with a simple answer. Don't overanalyze it. Don't think, oh, there's got to be some trick in it. This couldn't be that easy. I can't believe that. No, there are going to be some gimme questions, some simpler questions. So just be happy. Accept them, move on, don't overanalyze it. We said this one before, only change your answer when you're absolutely sure. Don't overanalyze things. I am too analytical, and I could see myself in certain cases saying, well, maybe from another angle they could have meant this. No, that is not a strong enough basis to be trying to judge and analyze things in these questions. Again, trust your instincts, trust what your gut instincts are on a lot of these questions. And again, we said watch your time at the first hour of the test, the first part of the test, especially the first 25, the first 30 questions. Really watch your time, because a lot of times the test is pretty front-loaded. They might put some of the toughest questions and questions that need a lot of time. They might have put those and front-loaded the test with those, and you might just need to read through them lightly and get an idea of what the question's about, kind of store that away in the back cells of the brain and the subconscious, let the brain work with it, but move on. Come back to it at the end of the test or another time in the test when you've had more time. And that brings up another good point we're just going to get to here in a second.